Hey y'all, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you, and I'm excited. I'm excited to get into some. We're going to start off talking a little bit about the new campaign that was started on Monday over on Level 1 Geek on Twitch, as well as a little bit about Tabletop Treasure Hunters, also on Level 1 Geek on Tuesday nights, which there have been some really crazy developments. So we're going to start with that, and then I'm going to move into some warm-ups, improv warm-ups, things that anyone can do. And these are usually the ones that I would do if I were running a class in person, but I'm going to be focusing more so on the ones that you could do if you were say playing online with friends through the computer, because some of these are a little bit more like spatial. You have to be able to see and designate who you're talking to, and that's kind of hard to do in a camera unless you say someone's name, but then it just kind of disrupts the flow a little bit. But thank you for tuning in, and let's get started. Very first thing, I want to talk a little bit about, and I'm going to switch over to my sheets real quick, just so you can see a little bit of where I'm coming from here. But I'm going to swap back to where I'm at. Excuse me. So, first thing, Candlekeep Mysteries started off wonderfully. I had such a blast. It's always so much fun playing with Tori, playing with Ian, and to play under M's DMing. I've played with her as the DM before, so I know she's brilliant at it. But she was feeling a little bit nervous since she typically does like one-shots or shorter campaigns as opposed to a full-on campaign. So she was feeling a little nervous, but she had nothing to be nervous about. It started off with a bang, and it is such a blast. I'm playing a character by the name of Shu Guan, who is, in this case, unfortunately, kind of a bullied young man. He is, I'd say, college age by this point. He unfortunately grew up in the same small town in a big city, or I guess small district in a big city, but has been around the same people for most of his life. But he's an artificer, and it all started in like his hometown, and it is a delight. One thing that I in particular want to call out is just the specifics that M uses. And Alan, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And as always, if you have any questions or anything, please leave them in the chat, and I will address them as quickly as I can. But I really want to call out how fantastic M was in the in providing specifics. I talked about this a little bit with the improv rules, and it really showcased itself when she was describing the town, describing places that that Tori's character could go. Specifically, there was the fairy something. I don't remember that one because I honed in on the other one, the less bougie one, which was the Lucky Duckling. Because once I heard that, I was like, that's beautiful. I love that name. And so when I latched onto it, I was like, okay, I'm latching onto it. I'm gonna make it important now, as important as I can. And so it became the place where Shu worked for his part-time job. And that was able to be like a nice little meeting place for all of our characters, as this was the first session and all our characters had really yet to... Tori's character and mine had met before, but as far as for the campaign, We had yet to really meet and connect, but it was the perfect place, and it all started because M had a fantastic specific. Now, RLU, hello! It's so good to see you. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions regarding improv or D&D, please drop them in the chat. But if not, still just thank you and welcome. Now, with Tabletop Treasure Hunters, it was the briefing session, which, I mean, it's so cool to be able to have so many people at once, and Chase does such a great job just keeping everything moving and organized amidst the chaos of having, like 10 people on stream at the same time. And as far as like what's going on there, here's a little sneak peek as far as Pjolb is concerned. Man, I'll say the last mission that he went on was a rough one for him. Seeing Gilgamesh almost die, seeing I mean, now I say Margot's friend, but Mavis's friend, since she was an imposter, seeing her friend go to unconscious and dying, and then teleporting away. Jordan, hello! Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat, and I'll answer them as soon as I can. But, like, seeing so many people that Pjolb cared about, I mean, effectively get to the point where he didn't know if they were going to survive, especially when people were phasing in and out from different places. And so, little sneak peek, he went a little bit to the dark side, not doing evil things necessarily, but because he wants to save Gilgamesh, he wants to save everyone he can, he decided to step away from good divine research and go into the darker realms so that maybe, just maybe, he can find the cure. Because Gilgamesh kept mentioning the fact that he would be gone in a year, and Pjolb doesn't want that. So, whatever ailment it is, Pjolb is on the job, but in order to do so, he had to go into some dark realms, get acquainted with some maybe more sketchy people, which has changed him a little bit. And we'll see how that all plays out in the next mission. And I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but as far as our special guest is concerned, there might be another little goblin cousin popping up for that one. So be ready for that on February 8th. Man, that'll be a long time. I'm already so excited, y'all. Okay. Now, let's get in to the improv of it all. I'm going to switch over to my sheets again real quick, but whenever I run an improv class, I usually do the same warm-ups because I throw my students enough curveballs. I put them in situations where they really have to learn very quickly. They have to be able to respond to new and potentially difficult things, depending on their background, very quickly. And so I like to set things up with consistent warm-ups. Every now and then I'll throw in a new one. I'll throw in something to keep them on their toes. But generally speaking, if you come into a workshop with me, you can expect at least some of these. So let's start with the positivity warm-up. So as far as that's concerned, all I do is I have everyone circle up. And I'll say this, I would highly recommend, if you're in a situation where you want to get your group more like loosey-goosey and more ready to play, ready to be silly, before a session, feel free to steal these, because these are my jam. Now, let's start with positivity circle. So, positivity circle, simply put, I just have everyone stand in a circle and, starting with myself, go around and say something positive that happened during the week. Doesn't have to be a crazy thing. It can be as mundane as having a good meal. I mean, it doesn't have to be the best meal ever, but I mean, if someone just said, "Hey, I had something I enjoyed," I'd take it. The main reason I do this is because, first off, it's something easy. It's not like I'm asking someone to rifle off all the presidents of the United States or anything. I start off with this so that everyone can get into a positive mindset, because improv is such a vulnerable craft. To make something up on the spot and immediately fire it out there into the universe, that's scary. I've been doing it for so long, but whenever I have to improvise right beforehand, I get nervous. I get the little butterflies, and I get that little bit of fear still. Now, having done it for so long, it's a lot easier to just jump in, because I have so many moments where it has gone well. I also have so many moments where it hasn't gone well, but because of that, I know that I've survived. So, whenever I do this warm-up, it's to get people in that positive mindset so that they can be vulnerable, so that they're willing to open themselves up to the possibility of failure so that they can risk success. Now, that one usually goes by pretty quick. Sometimes I have a student or two who wants to tell like a longer story, and perfect. I love it. Because if someone's excited about something in life, I want them to tell me about it. Tell everyone in the class, in the group about it, because that energy is contagious. And we all want to be able to congratulate each other for the good things in our lives outside of doing improv or outside of playing the game, because we're friends. Now, the next one, this one is one that you'd have to do in person, because it's weird when you're confined in the box. You don't have as much freedom, and it might look a little bit silly when you're doing it and you can see yourself. But I started off, and all I do is a gesture along with my name. So in this case, I might be like, Matt. And then I have everyone else in the circle follow along with me. They'll all say, Matt. And then I go to the next person and have them do a gesture and say their name. And then each person gets to do this so that they all have, of course, their gesture and their name. We do a quick review, and then you start passing it. To pass it to someone, all you got to do is do their gesture and say their name. Now, the reason I do this, first off, it's silly. Whatever your gesture is, I mean, I do this one because it's easy. And if someone is there for the first time, I want them to have someone that they can always send to easily. But it gets you in like a more physical state of being where you're moving your body already. And I mean, some people will come up with some silly, crazy things. Like my friend Jordan always does wild dance moves, and I mean, it gets a little crazy, and especially when you're the one doing it and everyone has their eyes on you, it can be a little nerve-wracking. But in the course of the game, as everyone's doing it, as you see everyone supporting you, no one's laughing at you if you do it wrong. No one's laughing at you if you get someone's name wrong. We just go along. We'll help you along the way. We'll champion you when you do it right. Because sometimes, like when Jordan does a crazy dance move that lasts like 10 seconds, if you are willing to put yourself out there and do it too, oh my gosh, we go crazy. And this also is one of the best ways to learn people's names. It's like, I think there was a movie where the person would hear someone's name and then they would say it kind of like Batman. Just like, okay, if I were to say Alan, if someone told me the name Alan, then like that, the woman in that movie would do, she'd be like, Alan. And then that would be her way of remembering. In this case, you're adding a gesture to help you with it, along with the adrenaline that comes from playing a game. Because when you're willing to send it to someone, you have to do the gesture, you have to say the name, and then it's hard not to end up remembering the name by accident because of the course of the game. Now, from there, I move on to some pattern games. And it starts with zip, zap, zop. If you're meeting with a group in person, this works perfectly. If you're doing it online, this won't work for you. But it's another silly thing where you're sending things to people. It starts zip. You send zip to someone, that person will send zap to someone else. That person will send zop to someone else, and then it starts over, zip, zap, zop, and so on and so forth. I start that off, pretty simple pattern, pretty easy to remember. It's about paying attention, because we should always be paying attention whenever we're in a scene or at the table, just because there's so many elements. I think about what I was talking about with the Candlekeep Mysteries game. If we hadn't been paying attention, if I hadn't been paying attention, then I would have missed those specifics and I wouldn't have been able to just draw from that. To accept the offer that M had fired off into the world, because I was listening, was able to run with it, and then we could all build upon it together. But once you have zip, zap, zop down, you go into tic-tac-toe. Now, here's the thing. You can use either zip, zap, zop, or tic-tac-toe as long as it stays in the 1, 2, 3 position. This is deceptively difficult because the nature of the game. If I send you zip, you can send zap or you can send tack to the next person. And then the next person can send toe or zop to the next person. Essentially, all you have to remember is what word is in the first spot, the second spot, the third spot. The hard part is the fact that the pattern is a little bit different. And the difference is simply that because it ends, zip, zap, zop ends in that consonant, that P sound, zip, zap, zop. When you go into tic-tac-toe, toe breaks that pattern. It makes it so that people are inclined to say tick-tack-tock, which, I mean, isn't in line with the pattern. And that's why it's difficult, even though it's a pattern that we're all familiar with. But once you've nailed those, we add in the third one, which doesn't have any of those, though it does have brand recognition: Kentucky Fried Chicken. And when you're sending all 3 of those in the circle, it gets chaotic. It gets crazy. And the key is, if you get it wrong, it's okay. The main thing that I want everyone to take from that is that when we're doing improv, when we're playing together at the table, we are trying our best. And if you happen to get something wrong, it doesn't matter. We can fix it, and we're good. Or in some cases, we run with it and we're good. The main thing is that we don't want to be beating ourselves up if we make a mistake. And we don't want to be in a situation where we're afraid to make a mistake. We want to take the risks so we can potentially get the reward of a fun experience. Now, Zip, Zap, Zop will eventually evolve into, one of my favorite variations of it, which is passing claps. Whenever I do that warm-up, once we've nailed all 3 patterns, once it feels like everyone's got it, then I jump into passing claps, which gets crazy because it's so much easier, because you no longer have to remember words, you're just clapping at someone. You're just clapping to them, and then it's up to them to clap to someone else. Sounds easy, and it is. But it goes so fast that you have to pay attention. It becomes less of a, am I doing this right? And no worries, thank you so much for tuning in. You're amazing. Right now, I'm just talking about some improv warm-ups. Some things that if you, if you wanted to run an improv workshop, if you wanted to just have some fun with your friends, or if you're at a table and you want to get everyone feeling a little loosey-goosey, then these are all things you can do. These are things that I do every time I teach people improv. But yeah, passing claps, it goes so quickly. And the main thing is that it tries to get you in the mode of no longer thinking about what's next, but just going on instinct. Because when we are in a scene, whether you're on stage or at the table, I'm glad to hear it. If you can get into that zone where you trust your instincts and you trust everyone around you to take care of you, then you can make magic. You can create moments and scenes that feel like they were scripted when all that was you and the people around you firing on all cylinders and trusting each other's instincts. Finally, I do a variation called passing looks, which is the craziest one, because it starts slow and then it goes faster than even passing claps can. Because what happens is you start off with something like a wink or a nod, and you pass it to someone, and then it's up to them to do some other look, like a look of fright or something. But it starts off obvious, and then it goes increasingly subtle as the game goes on. And eventually it gets to the point where it's like I'll look over at someone and they think that I've sent it to them when all I'm doing is trying to pay attention, trying to make sure that I'm ready in case someone else has it and they're about to send it to me. And so it ends up being almost as though the entire group is continuously sending looks to each other and receiving, and then everyone's like, I don't know what's going on, I don't know where the right one is, but it doesn't matter. What matters is the fact that at that point, everyone is paying attention to everyone else. So they're ready. So that even if you don't have the right thing, you are ready to catch when someone needs you to catch them. And that's all it is. Whenever you're improvising in the moment, if you're ready and available to catch, like a trust fall, then they can trust you and they can rely on their instincts because they know you will be there to help. Now, I'm gonna go into one of my favorites. This is a fairly simple one. I'm sure people have played this game before. I feel like it's like one of those team building things. It's called A to B word association. Simply put, I say a word to the next person in the circle. And then it's up to them to hear my word, think of another word, and say it to the next person, and so on and so forth. The main thing here is that there's really no wrong answer as long as you're connecting off of the word before you. And there's no justification process, right? If you were to tell me, say, I'm gonna grab a random word real quick, and hopefully there's no sound that's gonna blast out when I look for a random word here. Generate random words, key, great. So when I hear the word key, first thing I think of is door. So then I'll say door to the next person. And then when they hear the word door, whatever door makes them think of. Because, I mean, if we were to go in the same, like, general idea, it could be like key, door, house, stuff like that. Or, for someone, door might mean opportunity. Then it's up to them to say opportunity to the next person, and so on and so forth. As you're making those connections, you're effectively doing what everyone in improv wants you to do. You're yes-anding. Because the yes part is you hear what someone says. You recognize that they said that. And then you add on with your word. Now, the only way this can go wrong is if you don't associate, or if you associate with someone earlier on in the circle. For example, let's say that Jim, I'm gonna put this in my sheets so that I can keep track. Let's say that Jim says hot dog to Pam, and absolutely a geek of one's own. You got it. Let's say Jim says hot dog to Pam, and let's say Pam, connecting off of hot dog, thinks of the word orange and says orange to me. And then if I, thinking about hot dog, say bun to the next person, then I've done it wrong. Not because, like, no one would know. Here's the thing. Because it's all internal before I say my word, no one would know except me. Because in this case, I've done it wrong because I didn't listen to Pam. I didn't listen to the person who's sending directly to me. I got stuck on someone else's word, and I skipped over Pam's. And here's the thing. Whenever we're doing a scene, whenever we're having a moment at the table where we're all building, we're effectively all contributing things together. Everything I say is a brick. Everything Pam says is a brick. Everything Jim says is a brick. And when we're building together, if I ignore someone's brick, we end up with a shaky foundation. So, the big thing is, of course, making sure that you're listening. Oh, fair. I catch your drift, RLU. Look, if you're ever in Utah, or if we ever meet up at some point in real life, if you're down, I can run an improv workshop for you so you can see how this works. But here's like the tester, where once we've gone to this point, once we've gone through the circle, we usually go several times. But we have this list of seemingly random words. Here's where I throw in the twist. I reach that end and I'll tell everyone, hey, now we're gonna wind it back. The format is, I said this because you said that. Now. Yes, awesome. When we do, we will hook it up. Now, when it comes to the wind back, I don't tell anyone that I'm going to do that. because I don't want someone to just think, oh, all I need to do is think of 3 words if we go around 3 times and remember those 3, and then I'll do it right. Then I won't mess up. No, I don't want that, because here's the thing. When we wind back, going through bit by bit by bit, it's another test in trust. It's another test in how well we associated with the next thing. Because if we did our associations properly, then what we end up with is a verbal trust fall through the circle, where someone, like, we might reach me and I'll be like, oh, I have no idea what I said to this person. But then when they say, oh, I said door because you said key, then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, right, that's what I had said. So then I can go to the next person, and so on and so forth. Essentially, you're allowing yourself to rely on someone else's association to continue this circle in an ideal world. But because it exemplifies those key ideas of listening and yes and, it is a very powerful one. And sometimes when we're winding it back, we don't know what the connection is and we can't figure it out. Then we can rely on the next person. Maybe they remember. If they do, then they can give a clue without saying what it is. It could become like a game of charades where you pantomime what it is until the person gets it. And if no one remembers, we meet in the middle. We start back at the top of key, door, and so on and so forth until we meet back up again. Because there's more than one way to get to the finish line. Now, we're gonna go into, and this is half warm-up, half game. I've done this in a show before. I've done variations of this in a show before. And though the concept is simple, it becomes entertaining with execution. But the main thing is, well, it starts off one word at a time. And I know that there are so many situations where you just play this. You just play this with your friends and see what hilarity you end up with. Because all you're doing is you're going in a circle and saying one word at a time, trying to make a story, trying to work together. But the biggest thing here is listening, because if you're not listening, then you end up ignoring something and the sentence doesn't make sense. But if you want to try this, I would suggest, I guess depending on the size of your group, I would suggest all of you follow a few rules. These rules will make it easier for you to execute this in a satisfying way. Because if all I do is tell you to tell a story one word at a time, that can be chaos. That can be just supremely crazy, which, I mean, that can be fun too. But if you follow these rules, you end up with a more cohesive story that has a very distinct ending. First thing, make an objective. So, instead of it just being, all right, let's start, the rabbit went, and so on and so forth, give yourself a goal in this story. One of my favorites is, well, slaying a dragon. Let's say slaying the dragon, because I want to make this as important as possible. Slaying the dragon, because once we start it, we know where we're going. And once you've slayed the dragon, that's the end of the story, and we can end it, and it's over, and we can go on to another one, right? So, when you have an objective, it allows you to focus in. It gives you a bit of information that all of you can work together to get to, even though your minds are all working in different ways. The next thing is, first person. The reason I want this is to make it so that we don't have any weirdnesses along the story of, like, if I start the story and then other people are saying he, like saying I'm the one who's slaying the dragon, because then it feels like we're not in this together on the same level. It feels more like I'm doing something and everyone else is watching me. And I don't want that. I want everyone to feel like they're all on the same playing field. So we're speaking in first person. Let's say I'm gonna put Matt, Jim, and Pam. Let's say I start with the, and then Jim says rat. Found me. It gave me a mission. But I was scared. And I mean, this is much easier because I'm the only one, right? I don't have to worry about someone throwing me a curveball here. But the main thing here is that because I'm able to maintain that first person, it makes it so that all of us telling this story, it feels like a team. And that's what we want. Because when we're able to rely on each other like that, we create things that we didn't know were possible. And for me, when it comes to improv, that's the magic. The magic is in being a part of a creation that you wouldn't have been able to do on your own. Because here's the thing, because it's the moment, and because you have so many different people and different states of mind in different times, different moods, whenever I go up on stage, I could be playing with Alan, I could be playing with Jay, I could be playing with Jordan, I could be playing with I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your screen name. I think I know who you are, but I'm not going to say your real name. I could be playing with Liam. I could be playing with all of you, and on any given night, the show is going to be totally different because each of us bring different things to the table, as well as our audience. Because in improv, we get suggestions from the audience, and the audience can come up with something wildly different from one night to the next. Speaking of suggestions, I do have one story, and I'll end on this one because, again, I'm going to be ending a little early in about 5 minutes because I'm going to be jumping into the Let Us In stuff. So, and if y'all haven't checked that out, you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I play a Slenderman, Henry S. Lenderman, and it is a delight. Online name is Miku. Okay, great. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Miku. Now, in one show that I did in Midvale, it was a wild one because there were two players that I hadn't played with on stage before, like in the same scenes in the same show before. But we were thrown together in this competitive show. And one of the players was like, hey, you know what? I've got an idea. We're going to do something crazy. And so we had our games. We had games like Stunt Double, where you do a scene, you call a stunt double, and your stunt double has to do whatever you just said in your place. So I had to like helicopter a briefcase like it was a discus. But we had all these games set up. But the big thing was that we would do those 3 games along with 3 scenes, and then we would end it and do it all again in half the time, and then do it all again in half the time, until we got down to doing the entire show in a second. And that game is called Half-Life, but to do that from the basis of an entire improv show, I had never thought of it. I thought it was brilliant. We gave it a shot. I was out of breath at the end. I was dying. It was crazy. But when it came to a suggestion, I was asking the audience for a topic. Just a topic that, a semi-serious topic. Nothing too bad, but just something that you might have a discussion about, right? And so when it comes to stuff like that, I'm expecting something like taxes or a relationship. And when I say relationship, that's what that kind of issue is what was given to me from the audience. I just didn't expect it to be this suggestion, and I didn't expect it to be that person who said it, because I call out for a suggestion, and it felt like she was ready to go for this. This kid, she must have been like 7 or 8 years old, and whenever a kid like that, she stood up for this. She stood up from her chair. It felt like all the other people who were going to yell suggestions, it felt like they all parted. They all parted so that she could give this suggestion. So all the stars aligned. This 7-year-old little girl, in response to me asking for a semi-serious topic, gets this enormous smile on her face and yells out, "Divorce!" And the crowd went crazy, because you wouldn't think that a 7-year-old would grasp that concept, nor necessarily be the one who would be so game for yelling that out in the middle of the show. But she yelled it out with so much gusto, everyone was dying, and I was like, I gotta take that. I gotta take that. And those are the things you can't predict. You can't predict any of that. And from that, you have your creative juice that you can use to fuel your scenes and those moments. So, thank you guys so much for tuning in to my little ramble about improv and warm-ups, and a little sneak peek into some of the really fun D&D things that are on the horizon. So, if y'all have Monday nights free, I'll be on Level 1 Geek at 7:30 Mountain Standard Time for Candlekeep Mystery, so you can see Shu be, kind of a sad boy. You could also see me on Tuesdays. Right now it's Tabletop Treasure Hunters, so you're gonna see all the squads. We're at the end. We're at the end of the competition. We're getting to the point where, hey, it's anyone's game, or we'll find out who wins it all soon. So that'll be Tuesdays, 7 o'clock MST on Level 1 Geek. And this I think, I want to say today it just dropped, or it might be tomorrow. I think it'll be tomorrow, actually. Let us in. We're back, baby, with another episode, so you can see if maybe we'll find out the answers to our Monstrum Ex Machina. Maybe Henry will be able to help his friends without disappearing out of this curse that's been placed on him. But yeah, thank y'all so much for tuning in. Y'all are amazing. Um, and well, until next time, take care, everybody.